What if we were to think of melancholy as a code involving space and time, and special kinds of objects able to twist space and time into forms that we can't see, but can demonstrate logically in a sense darkness of touch and sound, balance and anxiety? I'm talking about a code for the sensorium, a synesthetic network that extends past our literal bodies. This would have to be a cipher with both real and imaginary parts, and we would have to learn how to look for it in the visual world by seeing things that are inferred rather than actual. We would have to learn how to recognize an internal geometry of melancholy, where there is an exchange between the visible and invisible that is regulated but productive and not just deductive. In this image from a famous 4-day wedding in 1475, a time when all weddings were alchemical and all alchemy was marriage, the Vesica Pisces of the Virgin Mary was an all-purpose way to represent the idea of passage, a rite of passage, as a void connecting word and flesh. There are two ideas here, one of inversion, a line beyond which the inside becomes outside, where the unconscious is presented as a world. The other idea is that of induction, where the defects of this puzzled presentation are resolved by the condition of self-reference, a kind of Janusian condition. There are alchemical weddings all over the place if you know where to look for them, as long as you allow for the structural similarities between weddings and funerals, and know the story of Cupid and Psyche, and how every groom's a Cupid and every bride is named Psyche. Péchier's Vanitas painting of 1661 is really a trash pile of things left behind by someone who is gone elsewhere. And like all trash piles, it is filled with clues about the kind of trip the departed has made. We see the house left behind, the body left behind, and even the space left behind as the traveler hastily left the land of subjectivity for the land of demonstration, beginning with a reset template drawn on what is known as a celestial sphere, an inside-out space that puts the viewer in the position of eternity, looking down and into the space of mortality, the space of married life. We are accustomed to dismiss these images as simply reminders of death, but alchemy is about the switch of life and death embodied in the idea of the pharmakon. But what if this is not a reminder to the living about death to come, but things left behind by a time traveler about to miss her flight, anxious to leave death for a new life in a space of demonstration, a flight she has begun with a brochure from a travel agency advertising the various tours available on a continuing basis, as Castor and Pollux, the Pleiades, Orion, and the Big Dipper. Once her flight takes off, it disappears into the clouds, and the travel agent, Pan, stays back at the agency. On a spiritual vacation, the headless tourist will be okay as long as she carries her passport, the caduceus of Hermes, the staff with twinned snakes that is itself a cipher of the twist that the flight will make, somewhere over the Bermuda Triangle, we presume, to involve projective geometry's round trip of self-intersection. But from below, it will look like a missed connection, what we will call non-orientation. The flight back will be the same as the flight out, and the spherical travel brochure will describe relations rather than fixed locations. You'll book tours rather than hotels, so instead of 3.146 and so on, you'll be traveling the route to pi. Instead of 1.618, etc., you will take the curvy road of the Fibonacci phi. This is the same as saying that, as individual subjects, we are unknowable, we are infinitely extendable. But as signifiers, we are the universally knowable and repeatedly known experiences of relations, such as love and hate, kindness and animosity, war and peace. This is the inside-out logic of Pan, whose body is, in fact, one big proportion. The trick of this image is to know that the soul must travel through a series of concentric airports, picking up souvenirs at each one. Saturn, the first stop, was a downer, but the parties were good. Jove was even more fun. In Mars, we got into a fight. Venus was all about butterflies and sunbeams. In Mercury, we visited a lot of libraries. Our tour guide Hermes kept us moving until we reached the cold, dry Earth, the vanishing point of which was guarded by worms, hence the skull. The big secret of this magical mystery tour is about how the end mirrors the beginning, so much so that we think the 2 points may be the same. This is self-intersection with a non-orientable twist. But the payoff is that one soul can travel through many bodies, what the mystics called reincarnation, but which the Greeks realized on the life side of things as mimesis. Jane Harrison tells us very plainly that mimesis is not imitation, but reincarnation localized in dramatic moments where subjects give way to signifiers, where the presentational space of subjectivity gives way to demonstrations, usually of the magic kind. Notice that the spheres themselves are divided by the sun, appropriately, between the mental spheres above and the bodily spheres below, the domain of the moon and tides. Now I find myself at the halfway point, where my images have to give way to demonstration. Lucky for me that this is the point where architecture weighs in, because the space of demonstration has, for its most economical expression, the Thesean labyrinth, which gets rid of scale and container-contained relations in order to construct a prison with no doors or locks. This penetrates the dome that contains all presentations by being simultaneously the material of the dome and the tool that breaks it. The fact that I'm not the first to think about this lies in the word chelum, which means both heaven and a wedge. It's a special kind of word called a contronym, one word that combines 2 opposite meanings, a word that we shall see is involved directly in the idea of melancholy. The chelum just doesn't divide presentation and demonstration, it divides their spaces. Below, we have the space of presentation as the puzzle aspect of the labyrinth. Above, we have the demonstration aspect, where every Theseus finds his Ariadne, conquers the Minotaur, and escapes the bonds of mortality. This story is preserved in the curious relations existing throughout time between labyrinths and temples, puzzles and solutions. In the extended space of appearances, we see through a glass darkly. In the temple, things are, as biblical poetry puts it, face to face. My demonstration style is to show that it's not just me saying this, but that this stuff has been known and understood for a very long time. Since long ago, before Cicero even, people knew that, in the land of the signifier, 2 people, at least 2 people, could have the same dream, and at least one of them would be living, the others would be dead. In fact, those who wrote about the dream of Scipio believed firmly that there was no other way to dream. Scipio the Younger is taken by his famous uncle, with the same name, up to heaven and shown the truth. In heaven, everyone is healthy and happy. Looking down on earth, however, people are sick and disgusted. The older Scipio reveals the code. The body is the death of the soul, so when the body dies, the soul is released and happy again. What we see in Vanitas paintings are the left-behind bits of the soul, the psyche, off on a vacation in paradise. She is off to meet a friend who has been dead for some time. Whole movies have been made about this, and David Lynch was smart enough not to give away the secret of which dreamer was the dead one. So he moved between four personalities, Diane and Betty on the left, and Rita and Camilla Rhodes on the right, doubles of doubles. Watch this movie and learn all about melancholy and its unruly geometry. In Durer's famous version of Mulholland Drive, there are more Bettys and Ritas than you can shake a stick at. Let's not waste too much time going through them as carefully as the authors of the famous book Saturn and Melancholy. You may have guessed already that the most important cipher in this presentation, the one we must demonstrate, is the sphere. Not a terrestrial globe, but a celestial sphere that serves as a travel guide for the journey to come. Other images of melancholy confirm the sphere as the universal key to this journey from sad presentation to happy demonstration. So pay attention to the downturned dividers as a clue about the relation of heaven, the pivot of demonstration, to the physical extension of presentation beneath. United we stand, divided we fall. One in the demonstration space of the signifier, we are divided subjects in the space of presentation. We know Durer is thinking about this because he deliberately misspells melancholia so that we will know how to rearrange the letters to spell something really important about this ratio, namely how to get from one side to the other. The respelled word, limoncello, is the gate of heaven through which Scipio Sr. demonstrates to Scipio Jr. which of them is happier. The other combinations of ups and downs, the scales, the hourglass, the magic number square of jovial Jove, all reinforce this. Even the missing bit on the stone polyhedron graduate to the point over, not the rainbow, but the moonbow, because we are presented the title of this image by a bat, not a bird. This says that this is a relation of heaven and earth, but in terms of the subject and signifier. Beyond the body is the text. This sounds very mysterious in words, but it is a matter of the geometry of the sphere that is able to turn itself inside out, the sphere whose inside is actually an outside. This closure is the basis of projective geometry, first discovered by Pappus of Alexandria in the 4th century and rediscovered by Girard Desargues in the 17th. It was quickly forgotten but rediscovered in the 19th by geometers such as Gauss, Riemann, Plücker, Mobius, and Klein. Sorry to say, architecture theory has neglected these thinkers. The thing that connects melancholy to this is the rim between the bowl of the subject and the closure of the signifier. It is non-orientable and self-intersecting. Reluctantly, I have to give away another secret here. I'll be going a little fast, so you probably won't get it the first time. This structure is called the induction puzzle. Melancholy is the induction puzzle, which is the defect in presentational space, that creates a space of demonstration inside it. Between the two is a rim that is present in the human body at the openings of the senses, and is here that we model the principles of hygiene by which we order things in perspectival space and insulate ourselves from danger and infection. It is also where we create special conditional openings to allow signifiers and subjects to relate to each other. Melancholy puts us between presentation and demonstration. And so this face from the Garden of Monsters in Bomarzo, Italy, is good to prove that this is not a big secret, but something that has been known for a long time. But continually misunderstood. Every thought flies, which is why melancholy has wings and a sphere nearby, and tools to construct the gate of heaven that is the rim connecting the two if there is a way to create a symmetrical difference. Maybe we can say more about this magical gate, which Euler has imagined as the void created by two circles, but that must wait for later.